Greetings to you all students. This is your Bhushan sir. Hope all of you are fine and safe at home during this pandemic time. Take care of your health. Students, today we are going to understand the next phylum, that is phylum Annelida, its general characters, classification up to classes with examples. So, objectives of today's study is to understand the characteristics of the phylum Annelida and to understand the different classes of Annelida with the suitable examples. So, contents include the general characteristic features, classification up to classes with the examples. Students, the term phylum Annelida is derived from the Latin word annulus, which means little ring or rings arranged in a linear manner. The name Annelida was for the first time used by Lamarck in 1809 for all higher invertebrate worms, which are segmented worms otherwise. Down in the slide, when you look at, we have two organism representation. One towards right side is of a terrestrial organism, that is the earthworm. Towards the left side is the Nereis, an aquatic annelid. The body configuration of both the organisms, when you look at, it shows presence of ring-shaped segments on the body system. So the complete body is divided into number of rings. Any organism which has got this kind of body arrangement with the ring-like structures on it comes under the phylum Annelida. Hence, annelids are defined as triploblastic, bilaterally symmetrical eucoelomates with the metameric segments or segmented worms, which are referred as the metazoans or higher invertebrates. Let us understand now the general characteristic features of the phylum Annelida. First, to start with, is habitat and habit. When we look at the dwelling place of these organisms, they share all kinds of environment almost. They are mostly aquatic, means to say they live in water. We have two types of water bodies, the freshwater body and marine water body. So this annelids lives in both the aquatic water bodies. Example for marine aquatic animal is Nereis, and freshwater annelid is leech. They also burrow in tubes of different shapes. Example is Chaetopteris. Some organisms of annelids are free living and at times shows sedentary condition also. Sedentary refers to the sessile condition or the condition wherein the organisms will attach to a particular substratum and tries to continue its life cycle. Then there are also organisms of annelids which are said to be parasites. Best example what we understand is the leech, which is said to be sanguivorous, mean to say it feeds on the blood of the vertebrate organisms. There are organisms of annelids which lives even on the earth, land, that is terrestrial region. So hence they are commonly called as earthworms. Generally the term earth is used for the land terrestrial areas, and hence these worms are also called as earthworms. The body of these organisms, when we look at, it is said to be elongated, worm-like. So hence it is called vermiform. Worm-like body is called as vermiform condition. So right above the slide, you have got two pictures or images. One towards left side is the earthworm, towards right side is the leech. And down in this slide you can find, right from the left is the Chaetopteris, which is burrowing in U-shaped tube in the sea. Then at the center is an organism called Sabella, showing free living and sedentary life. And remember, sedentation of this organism is not permanent. Then we do have towards right side the organism of Nereis. Now, the body color varies for different organisms of annelids. For example, earthworms, when we look at, it is said to be dark brown. If it is leech, it shows varied colors of leeches with olive green, brown color, black color, etc. Chaetopteris, when we look, it shows light green colored condition. So likewise, the organisms of annelids varies in color. Coming on to the size of the body of these organisms, that also varies. So earthworm, when we look at, it is almost 150 centimeters of diameter, centimeters of length it has got, and a width or diameter of 5 mm. The body conditions, when we look at, the body of the organisms of annelids is derived from 3 embryonic germ layers, namely outer ectoderm, middle mesoderm and inner endoderm. When the body of an organism is formed from all the 3 germ layers, then it is called triploblastic. As we have understood the term, triplo refers to 3, blasto refers to the germ layers here. So the body organization of these animals, when we look at, it shows in cross section the diagram C representation, what you find in this slide. So blue color layer is the ectoderm, pink color layer is the mesoderm, and yellow color layer at the center is the endoderm. The very special feature of this organism is the mesoderm, that we will understand little later. Coming on to the body symmetry. Symmetry, as we have understood, when the body of an organism is divided at anteroposterior axis or at a longitudinal axis from the head to the anal region, to get the 2 mirror images, then the symmetry is called bilateral symmetry. Students, remember, all annelids shows bilateral symmetry. Hence, body of this organism is bilaterally symmetrical. Then, the very important feature related to the body of annelids is that they are metamerically segmented. So this particular term, metamerism, is confined to the phylum Annelids, Annelida. The organisms of annelids exhibit this metamerism. What exactly is this term metamerism referring to? Generally, when we look at the body of this animal externally, it shows ring-like segments. Those ring-like segments are when neighbor ring-like segments are joined, it shows a kind of groove at the center. So at the junction of two segments, you can find a groove. So can you see a groove-like structure here? Like that the organism shows. These groove-like structures are transverse. It is horizontal when the animal is made to remain from anterior-posterior axis. It shows transverse grooves. This transverse groove area, when you see in the diagram down, which is towards the left side, the outer surface, the blue color lining, what you find is it is not striped, it is slightly grooved. So that undulating or grooved nature is because of the transverse grooves there. Now, this transverse grooves continues down inside the body into the structures called as septum, singular, septa, plural. So there is a dividing structure present at this groove regions. So these structures are referred as septa or septum. So the body completely, when we look at, outside it appears to have the transverse grooves, inside it will have number of partitions, and this partitions is made by the structures referred as septum or the septa. Hence, the body of this annelids, when we look at by the cross section or the longitudinal section, shows number of compartmentalization. So number of segmentalization. So overall the body of the animal, when we look at here in this diagram, down towards the left side, the body is divided into number of compartments or chambers. This kind of body, if an invertebrate has got, showing outside transverse grooves, inside the compartmentalization, the compartments. This condition is called as metamerization. So each compartment is called segment or metamer or somite or a ring. So overall, the body of this annelids, when we look at, it is made up of number of compartmentalized segments. Now, hope the concept is clear now. So metamerism refers to segmentation of the body. It is due to the presence of septae or the partitioning units. So this partitioning units will divide the body into number of segments referred as somites or metameres or segments in general. The first segment of the body, which is seen towards the anterior end at the top, anterior end, when you look at the body, both the ends are almost tapering. So towards the anterior end, the body segment, which is said to be the first segment, is specially called with the name peristomium. So peristomium refers to the first segment of the body in case of annelids, whereas the last segment is called as anal segment or pygidium. So these particular segments are very essential to demark the body of the animal into the anterior-posterior axis. So that's a specialty related to the body of the animal. Now, the body of the organism having the peristomium at front may show anteriorly an extension of the body. So it is not the segment, but there is simply an extension. That extended portion, we call it as prostomium. Students, remember, peristomium is the first segment of the body, in front of which at anterior location there is an extension of the body segment called as prostomium. So this prostomium helps in giving the support and protection for the mouth at ventral location for the animals. Now, the number of segments, when we look at, it varies from organism to organism. So there is there are organisms with a definite number of segments. For example, in case of leech. In leech, there are only 33 segments confined. So whereas the other organisms, when we look at, the number of segments of the body is not confined to any number. So the number varies according to the species, according to the organisms. Earthworms of the variety called Ferritima posthuma, it shows around 150 segments, 120 to 150 segments. So likewise, the organism will show variation with the number of segments also. Coming on to the body organization. The body organization is generally referred as organ system grade of body organization, which means the body of the animal is made up of number of systems of organs. It will have digestive system having many parts or organs, then excretory system having parts of many organs, then many organs together helps in the process of reproduction. Likewise, the systems, physiological systems of the body in case of the annelids is made up of organ systems. It indicates that a group of organs are together involved in the process of a particular physiology. Now, the body covering of the organisms generally consists of an outer non-cellular or dead material, non-collagenous, non-cellular and collagenous dead tissue, which is multi-layered, called as the cuticle. So this particular layer is produced by or synthesized by a living cellular layer down or beneath, called as epidermis. So below the cuticle you have the cellular epidermis. Cellular epidermis refers to epidermis made up of the cells which are living. Then below the structure of epidermis you have the muscles of both of the type inner circular and longitudinal muscles. So the longitudinal muscles, circular muscles along with the epidermis together corresponds to the body wall of the annelids. All these structures together involves in the phenomenon of the contractile condition, which helps in the process of locomotion. So muscles along with the epidermis forms the body wall, and body wall assists in, coordinates in the process of locomotion. So down in the picture you can see the section of the body wall in case of the earthworm. So you can see in between the structures of the muscles and the outer epidermis, rod-like structure extending. Those rod-like structures are generally referred as seta or setae. So they help in the actual process of locomotion. So the setal structure are associated with the muscles of the body wall. So the contraction and relaxation of these muscles of the body wall brings about the movement of the setae, thereby the organism shows the locomotion. Coming on to the locomotion in case of the organisms of annelids. So generally for any locomotion we require appendages or legs. Here the appendages are unjointed. There are organisms with the appendages. Appendages, if are present, they are unjointed. This unjointed appendages looks fleshy, mean to say it will be made up of muscles. When they are made up of muscles showing the extensions of rods, as what you find in the diagram towards the left side, they are called as parapodia, plural, parapodium singular. So every segment of the body except for the first and the last you find towards the lateral side of the body paired appendages attaching to the body of the aquatic organisms. So this paired appendages seen at every segment of the body towards the ventrolateral position helps the animal to propel easily in the water. So move easily in the water. So remember the locomotory structures present in the aquatic annelids, excuse me, which is made up of fleshy unjointed appendages referred as the parapodia. So the locomotory organs may be paired in case of parapodial structures. In case of earthworms, when we look at, every segment will have not the paired appendages. Instead, every segment will have number of rod-like structures extending, as what we have seen in the previous diagram as well as the diagram down towards the right side. There is rod-like extensions where 3/4 of those rod-like structures will embed within the body wall, only 1/4 of it will be extended out. These structures are referred as setae or chetae. So they act as the locomotory organs in case of the earthworm. So in case of terrestrial organisms, generally we find setae or chetae. In case of aquatic organisms, we find parapodia as the locomotory organs. Overall, the setae or parapodial structure, muscles which are attached down inside, and the coelomic fluid which gives the hydrostatic skeleton support. Remember students, this organisms doesn't have any bony structures both inside and outside. So they are totally absent. But they have the stiffness for the body which is contributed by the coelomic fluid. So remember, the coelom, muscles, setae, all the three structures helps in the actual propelling of the organism or locomotion of animal. Coming on to the coelom structure. Coelom in case of the annelids is called as eucoelom or true coelom, and it is also referred as schizocoelom. So two words you will have to write for the coelom structure of annelids. Eucoelom refers to a true body cavity which is seen as an empty space between the outer body wall and inner alimentary canal. And both the structures of the outer body wall and inner alimentary canal is lined by means of the mesodermal cells. So down in the picture when you look at, the blue color shade is seen both for the lining of endoderm, that is the yellow color part, and for the mesoderm outside, that is the ectoderm outside. So ectoderm below has got mesodermal lining, and alimentary canal, that is endoderm above, also shows the mesodermic lining. So mesoderm is getting splitted now to form two separate cavities of the body, and which are referred as the coelom. And this coelom is an empty cavity that shows the presence of the organs. Students, remember, this kind of empty space when we see for the body system between the body wall and the alimentary canal, you call the condition as eucoelom. And the organism that possess eucoelom are called as eucoelomates. It is called a schizocoelous coelom because this schizocoelous coelom refers to the true body coelom which is lined by means of the mesoderm between the body wall and the inner alimentary canal. So this is about the importance of the coelom structure. Now, the coelom of annelids is also very specialized because it is divided into a large number of compartments by means of intersegmental septa or mesenteries. Down in the picture when we look at, there is a labeling called mesentery. Mesentery refers to a partition or a septa that divides the coelom into two spaces. One is upper, the other one down, here in case of the diagram. So this septal structure, the complete cavity of coelom is divided into a cavity part towards one side, the cavity parts towards the other side by means of the septa. They are also called as mesenteries. So this condition we call it as schizocoelom condition. Coming on to the next concept called as the digestive system. So since we are going to understand the type study in detail, there we are going to understand much about the digestive system of the earthworm. But here you remember the digestive system of all the annelids contains the alimentary canal, which is tube-like elongated. It doesn't have the similar width all through the length. It shows variation with the width of the tube. It is tube-like, showing the muscular structures. So the tube of the alimentary canal is made up of muscles. It is called as complete. As we have understood, complete alimentary canal or digestive system refers to presence of mouth and anus for the digestive system. So this organism has got both the mouth and anus. So two separate openings for the process of ingestion of food and egestion of the undigested waste. So overall the body, when we look at in cross section, it appears to be tube within another tube. So body having the tube of digestive system. So that's the arrangement of the alimentary canal in case of the organism. Remember, it is complete, it is muscular, it is tube-like, and it shows tube within tube arrangement. Next is the process of respiration. Students, remember, the respiration is a phenomenon where there is gaseous exchange between the atmosphere and the organism takes place. And here, in case of the organisms of annelids, when we look at, it shows two types of respiration. As we have understood, the habitat of these animals, when we look at, annelid shows both the terrestrial mode of life as well as the aquatic mode of life. They live in water. There are animals that lives in the water, and there are animals of annelids that lives on the land. The organisms that lives in the water requires the gills as the respiratory organs. So all the aquatic forms of the organisms of annelids shows the presence of gills as the respiratory organs, as how is what you're seeing towards the right side of the diagram. There is an organism called Sibylla, which shows the presence of the extended gills. So this kind of respiration which occurs through the gills is called as gill respiration or branchial respiration. Whereas the organisms of annelids that lives on the land, the terrestrial organisms, when we look at, they require the land or soil which is damp or moist. So this is a condition required for the organisms. Best example is our earthworm. Only when there is wet soil or damp soil, that kind of soil is preferred by these organisms, because that is the environment where the organism will keep its skin very moist. The moist skin of the organism helps the organism of the earthworm to have the process of respiration. So respiration also occurs by the general body surface in case of the earthworm. So this kind of moist skin, when it is involved in the process of diffusion of respiratory gases, it is called as cutaneous respiration. Students, it's a very important point that you will have to remember. The aquatic forms of annelids respire by gills called branchial respiration, whereas the terrestrial organisms of the annelids respires through the moist skin. So skin acts as the respiratory organ here, and this type of respiration is called as cutaneous respiration. So down in the picture towards the left side, The earthworm's skin, when you look at, it shows in the enlarged condition of the epidermis, the capillaries shows that a diffusion process helping the animal to have the respiration through the gentle body surface. So oxygen from outside enters directly into the blood vessel and carbon dioxide diffuses out. So skin helps in the process of respiration here. Coming on to the phenomenon of circulation. The blood vascular system or circulatory system in case of the annelids is called as closed type. Why do we call it as closed type? It is because the blood flows in definite blood vessels. So blood flow happens within the blood vessels. So blood vessel concept you find for the body of the organism here. So such type of blood circulation where it definitely flows in the blood vessels is called closed type. Then the blood of this animal appears to be reddish in color. So red blood coloration is due to presence of the pigment called hemoglobin, which is also called as erythrochrorin. So this particular pigment is present in the plasma of the blood. Students, remember, generally in human blood, when we look at, the blood cells called the RBCs contains the hemoglobin pigment, whereas the plasma is colorless. Whereas in case of the organisms of the earthworms, when we look at, the blood plasma contains the pigment because of which the blood appears reddish. So the pigment is called hemoglobin. The term erythros refers to red and Latin cruro refers to blood, and hence hemoglobin is also called as erythrochrorin. So where is that location of hemoglobin in case of the blood of annelids? It is in the plasma. So down in the picture you can find various blood vessels that supplies blood to the different segmental parts of the body. So this is how the complicated blood vessel system is present in the annelids. So here is a representation of the earthworm showing the blood vessel of the circulatory system. So this kind of circulatory system where the blood flows in definite blood vessels is called as closed type of the circulation. Then the next point is excretion. So as we know, excretion refers to removal of unwanted excretory waste present in every cell. Here, the complete body segments shows the presence of a specialized structures which involves in the removal of the excretory waste of those segments. They are generally referred as, the units are referred as nephridia. So nephridia are structures that will communicate between the coelom inside and external surface outside. So each nephridia involves in the removal of the excretory waste from the body to the outside the body surface. So towards the right side you can find different types of nephridia. So we are going to understand them in detail in the type study of the organism of earthworm later. So remember, excretion occurs through the nephridia system. Students, remember, the organisms shows generally the acids which are excreted out in the form of ammonia, which is very toxic to the body if it is retained. So this nephridial structures helps in the removal of those ammonial compounds. Coming on to the next system called nervous system. Nervous system is very well developed in case of annelids. Here is an example of the earthworm. It shows presence of a pair of cerebral ganglion. So ganglia refers to, gang refers to something to remain together. We call it as aggregation. Aggregation of nerve cells or neurons is called as ganglia. So this happens in the segment number 2 and 3 and continues till 4. Can you see a ring-shaped structure or a garland-shaped structure? So that is made up of a pair of cerebral ganglia. So that is the actual brain of the organism. That will continue down at ventral position towards the posterior side at mid location of the body into 2 nerve cards. So towards the left side of the diagram when we look at, so a ring-shaped cerebral ganglia we find that continues down as 2 elongated cards which are solid. Here in case of the first diagram towards the left side, both of them are joined. Okay, otherwise they remain as separate structures. They are called nerve cards. As the nerve cards moves from anterior to posterior, in every segment, the nerve cards will show presence of a ganglion again. Okay, that is neurons will aggregate. So every structure, at every segment, the structure of nerve card shows the presence of a ganglia. So we call it a segmental ganglia. Okay, so this segmental ganglion helps in the extensions of nerves. Okay, we call generally them as peripheral nerves. So we have structure of the brain. The brain structure continues posteriorly as the ventral nerve card. These nerve cards at every segment shows the ganglia. The ganglion shows the presence of peripheral nerves. So this continues till the last segment of the body. So this is about the importance of the nervous system in case of the annelids. Then coming on to the sensory system or receptor organs of the body. This annelids shows various types of sensory organs present in them. For example, they have tactile organs. Tactile refers to response towards the touch. When you touch an organism, immediately it will respond. Such responding organs are referred as tactile organs. Then they do have organs of taste, gustatory organs. There are organs which helps in balancing of the body, especially in case of the organism that lives in the water. So they are called as statocysts. And the organisms are also shows the presence of sensory organs which are photoreceptors. I mean to say they are sensitive to the light. They do have eyes. So these are all few of the sensory organs of annelids showing varied functions overall. Coming on to the reproductive system. Students, remember both the types of reproduction and reproductive system is present in case of the annelids. Annelids are monoecious or hermaphrodites. Mean to say, both male and female sex gonads are present in the same animal. Such organisms are called hermaphrodites. Example is your earthworm, leech, etc. But there are organisms where males are different and females are different. So they are called unisexual organisms or dioecious organisms. Example is your nereis. So down in the picture towards left side is the organisms of 2 earthworms exchanging their male gametes. Okay, so which you call the pseudocopulation. This is with reference to hermaphrodites. Whereas in case of the organisms of nereis, when we look at males and females, they swarm into the water during the sexual phase and maturation. They release their gametes and those gametes will fuse to form a larval stage called a strokophore larva. So when a larval stage is included in the developmental stage of an organism's life cycle, we call it as indirect development. So all dioecious organisms where sexes are separate, you find generally presence of trophophore larva. Whereas in the organisms which are said to be monoecious, that is hermaphrodites, they show direct development of the organism, which is something very peculiar. Generally, whenever the organisms of hermaphrodites are there, there we find the larval stage. But here it is a different case, where in case of dioecious forms we find the larval stages, in case of monoecious forms we find direct development, and the larva of the organism is called as what? It is called trophophore larva. Students, there is a very special feature related to annelids. All the larvae of annelids are generally termed with the name trophophore larva. So it's a common state seen for most of the organisms of annelids. It's a free swimming larva which later develops directly into a tiny organism. So this is about the importance of the general characters related to phylum Annelida. Now, so after we understanding phylum Annelida, general characters, now we will move on to the classification of the phylum. So phylum Annelida is directly divided into three groups or three classes. This is based on certain of the characters which are inclusive. For example, character of locomotion, locomotory organs. The second is the habitat place. The third is the reproduction type. So likewise, the characters based on which we are classifying the phylum Annelida into three classes. The first class of phylum Annelida is called as oligochaeta. Oligo means few, chaeta refers to the locomotory organs. So they will have few locomotory organs in their body. Generally, setae or chaetae are the structures of locomotion. Example is earthworm. So remember, class oligochaeta includes the organisms with less number of chaetae or setae, and these organisms generally are terrestrial organisms that lives in damp soil. Examples are earthworms. The second class of annelid includes polychaeta. Poly means many, chaetae refers to the structures of locomotion. So the locomotory structures are innumerable. So every body segment will have towards its ventrolateral position paired appendages of parapodia. So these organisms that shows presence of many number of locomotory structures, they are referred as polychaetes. Best example is the first diagram above is Sabella and down is the Nereis organism. Then the third class of organism includes Hirudinea or Hirudinea class. This Hirudinea class of organisms includes the examples of leeches. Students, remember, I think the spelling mistake I have here. L-E-E-C-H-E-S, leeches it should be of, okay? Fine, sorry. So these leeches are sanguivorous organisms. So they are organisms which will feed on the blood of vertebrates. Okay, so those organisms that has a component of anticoagulant called as hirudin, those organisms comes under Hirudinea class. So we have three major classes. Class oligochaeta includes earthworm, class polychaeta includes marine forms of aquatic annelids, and Hirudinea includes the examples of sanguivorous organisms. So this is the general classification of phylum Annelida. Students, one more concept that you will have to remember here is, for your exam you can write only this much. So, and no need of writing the diagrams at all for the general characters as well as for the classification. So nowhere you will have to, you need to write a diagram. So only points that you will have to explain here, that is all. Pictures and images I have incorporated for you to understand the concept. Now, So after we understanding the actual phylum Annelida classification, there is one more class added to these three, which is an older version of the classification which you find in most textbooks. But you can remember only these three classes which you can also write in your examination if at all it is asked. There is one more class of organisms of annelids which are derived from the polychaetes only. So we take few examples of polychaetes and we have made them into different class. It is because of their origin. We consider them to be most primitive kind of annelids or first formed annelids, and hence they are called, the last class is Archaeannelida. So Archaeannelida includes organisms of annelids which are first formed of polychaeta. Remember that, okay? So this is about the importance of the classification related to phylum Annelida. Hope the concept is clear. Well, students, we shall now test how much we have exactly understood the concept of phylum Annelida general characters, classification up to classes with the examples related to it. Question 1. Okay, this is through MCQs, okay? Question 1. Metamerism or metameric segmentation is the characteristic feature of which of this group of organisms here? We don't find the transverse grooves and septal formation in Porifera, Mollusca and Platyhelminthes. It is only in Annelida. So answer should be C, Annelida. Question 2. Annelids are, different characters we have given as options. Radially symmetrical. Annelids are bilaterally symmetrical, so A is wrong. They are externally segmented. No. External segmentation moves inside as septa. So B is also wrong. D, when we look at pseudocoelomate, but these annelids are eucoelomates. So, and the C is triploblastic. So answer out of this 4 is triploblastic C. The next MCQ. Coelom is divided into septar compartments in the following animals. So this condition we call it as metamerism. So metamerism is related to which animals here? Mollusks, sponges, cnidarians and annelids. So definitely answer B, annelids. Respiratory skin is found in cockroach, earthworm, both A and B, that is cockroach and earthworm, none of these. So answer is B, the earthworm. So terrestrial forms of annelids lives in the habitat called as a damp soil, where the skin involves in the respiration. What do you call it as? Cutaneous respiration. Answer is B. Fifth question. Trophophore larva is found in cnidarians, cockroaches, annelids, sponges. So it is annelids C. The last question. Dissolved hemoglobin is found in the plasma of sponges, arthropods, cnidarians and earthworms. Answer is D, earthworms. So coming on to the outcome, what have we exactly learned? We have learned about the characteristic features of annelids, general characters. Then we also have understood the importance of different classes of annelids with the examples. So references, when we look at here, the textbook includes Invertebrate Zoology by P.S. Verma, Jordan and Verma, modern textbook Zoology by Kotpal or Invertebrates by Kotpal. So the images, whatever I have taken, it includes these sources, students, of Wikipedia and Britannica.com. Here in this particular part of our session of the unit, you will be generally asked to write all the general characters and classification with examples up to classes of phylum Annelida for a major question. For short notes question, they will definitely ask the classification. And since you have got 1 mark questions too, they may ask directly the concepts. What is the symmetry that is found here? What is metamerism? Then what is schizocylous coelom? Then to which particular class a particular organism belongs? Like that they will give you in the exam. So be prepared. If you have any queries and comments, critics, please post them to my personal WhatsApp number, students. Take care of yourselves and your health too. Thank you all. Thank you all.